Hey, computer stays 10. We're going to make it so that we can blow up each other's character in our battle arena game. It's kind of an important part of battling, I guess, is to be able to pow pow like hit your opponent. And whether you're throwing sneakers or you're throwing hot dogs or you're shooting bullets, this is going to be how you detect collisions. We're going to be first of all experimenting with variables, and you'll see that like these variables don't show up until I begin the game, and then there you can see the little visuals of the variables at the top, little orange boxes. So where do we get these from and how do we do it? So if you go over to on the left-hand side of the screen, there's the variables tab, and take a look and see what we got in here. So you might not have all these things. I think it starts with a default variable called my variable. We can go click and make a new variable. So in order to keep track of how many lives we have, we're going to make a lives variable. There's two ways you can do it, and I'm going to recommend the second way. The first way is you could say, you can make a red lives variable for all sprites, and then you can make a separate like green lives for the green tank, and have that for all sprites. Or you can make just a lives variable and make it for this sprite only. And then you do that process twice for each character sprite. I think I'm going to recommend this way. So in other words, I just have to say lives, and I say for this sprite only. I want to click OK. I've already done it, so I won't click OK. But when I do, that means that there'll be a new variable, a new place to store a number that is inside of this sprite only. And that means other sprites can't access it and change it. So that's a good thing. I would do that for the red tank or whatever your other characters are called, and the green tank. Do that process separately. You'll see they show up on the screen. I think the default looks like this. It shows sort of the name. And I didn't call the variable green tank colon lives. I just called it lives and made it for this sprite only. And that's why it's like, oh, this is the lives for green tank. And then I did the same thing, but for red tank. And I'm just double clicking on these to like cycle through the different ways of showing them. I'm trying to double click. It's a little bit tricky. Oh, weird. It got kind of boxy. If you just double click on these, you kind of cycle through, and I kind of want it to be like this for the actual game itself. But I just wanted to show you how to go about doing that. So lives are going to start off at 0 because that's the default value for a numerical variable. And you can set it to 3 at the beginning of the project. And then you do that with these blocks. So here, I got various variables here, but I can set lives to 3, and I can just have that, when I press the green flag or whatever broadcast begins the actual battle part of the game. You can also change variables, so I can select my variable. I'm going to choose lives. You can change by a positive or negative number, so you can increase or decrease lives. You're mostly going to decrease right now, but in the future you might have like power-ups that show up to give you lives back. Health potions or repair kits or whatever you like. Okay, so those are sort of the new blocks of code we're going to be using. I'll show you an example of how we're going to put it together. This is the wrong sprite. I have it all broken up for you. Here is a script for doing some collision detection. My trigger is when I receive start, because eventually I want to have various screens in front. And that's how I make the game start when I want it to, not when I press the green flag, but when I click a button and select the map and so on. But it doesn't really matter too much about what your event is right now. So first of all, I show the variable. That means the little orange box appears on the screen. And then check out my forever loop. It's basically, I think the theme of this whole project is forever loops with ifs in them. So it's basically this red tank here, I believe it's the red tank I'm in, is going to be constantly checking to see, hey, am I touching the green bullet sprite? And if I am, I have sort of this effect here. I change brightness to show I've been hit, and then I change lives by -1. That's the main thing. I don't think this is ultimately essential. The most important thing is you change lives by -1. And you should probably put in a weight in here as well. I think I have my weight sort of planned in some other more clever way. But as a bare basics, you'd want to put in some kind of weight in here where you're going to be immune from taking damage for a moment. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll just put in for 1 second for now. So this is kind of the most straightforward sort of example of how that script works. Why do we need that weight? Well, as the bullet passes through your sprite, it'll probably be touching the sprite for a few frames of animation, and so that will trigger the lives to go down by more than 1 when you get shot. So what I'm going to do instead is make it go down by 1 and then wait a second before I check for another collision. So you have a bit of immunity for a small period of time after you be hit. That's very common in video games to have that sort of, you've been hit and here's a moment to recover before you can get hit again. So that's what this wait does. Yeah, is this making sense, folks? Hopefully it's making sense. Don't forget, again, to set the lives to 3 or whatever you want at the beginning of the project as well. Okay, so that doesn't mean we're going to be able to win or lose the game still. When you get to 0 lives, that doesn't do anything. You can get to -1 lives, -2 lives, -3 lives. So the other thing we need to do is check to see if we've got to 0 lives. So what I'm going to do is show you this script here. So this is another if statement, and I'm just checking to see if lives equals 0. This is constructed by taking the lives, I don't know what the right term is for it, but it's like a block that just represents the lives variable. And you can stick it in an equals sign here from the operators. And you can plug that whole combination into an if statement. So I'm just saying if lives gets to 0, then here's what I do. That means the red tank has died. So I do a little animation where I have the red tank ghost and pixelate at the same time. I find that looks pretty sweet. That's going to take, a second for that to accomplish. And when it's done doing that cycle, I'm going to broadcast green tank wins because it's the red tank that died. I'm in the red tank right now. And then that means I put a thing on the screen that says green tank wins. Although you can do something more sophisticated if you want. So where does this script go? I like to just stick it inside of this thing. You could put it here, but then you got to wait a second for the immunity to expire and then you die. So probably right here is a good place for it. That way, as soon as you go down by 1 life, you check, hey, did I get to 0? And if you do, do the death animation and also go to the game over screen. So this is a great place to put your kind of checking to see if you've died code. This loop here with the if statement, that's checking to see if you've been hit and then losing a life. This is checking to see if you've died, if you've been defeated. So that goes right in here, like so. Last but not least, this wait 1 second's kind of boring. Like if you're just sitting there and you've taken damage and you don't see any indication that you've taken damage, it's not very exciting. So you could replace it with something like this. So here we have sort of a script where we're going to use the brightness effect, and you can try all sorts of different things. This is, again, a fairly basic version. This is going to basically make your tank flash brightness. It's going to flash bright and then go back and flash bright and go back again. Altogether, that's going to be, and then another 0.25. That's going to be altogether, 1 second. So it's equivalent to that 1 second wait. But then there's some animation built in. So I can just stick that on the end. So the basic parts are in this if statement here, we have if you're touching the green bullet, the main consequence is you're going to reduce lives by 1 and then some kind of thing to delay you. In this case, I've chosen to do a little bit of an animated delay, but at least a wait would go in there. So I guess before this is done though, or before this starts, you should probably check right after you reduce lives to see if you've died. And so this piece of script is kind of useful. So hopefully that makes sense. This is the whole script by the end of it, I think. Yeah, there we go. And that's the idea behind having a collision. And you're going to do the same thing with your other character. This is a fairly sophisticated script. It's got ifs inside of an if. It's got broadcast. It's got a lot of, operators and checking and stuff. So if you're finding it difficult, just call me over. We can look at it together and I could do an attempt to explain it again. All right, folks, I hope you're enjoying the project and I wish you good luck on getting this to work. Okay, thanks everybody. I gotta figure out how my hotkeys work again. It's very annoying. Bye.